Do you want me to start, Stacey? I'll just make sure everyone's here.
All right, good evening. I'm just going to check and make sure we have all of our candidates here. Anna? You are, okay, under the name, do you pronounce it Bell? Okay, and then Justin, can you hear us, Justin? And Heidi? And Canton?
I'm here.
Okay, great. And Alan? And Laura? Okay, we are all present, and go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for committee interviews being held just before our council meeting this evening. We will be interviewing 6 candidates for 2 vacancies on the Public Safety Committee. First, we will start with any public comment before we go into these interviews. So do we have anybody for public comment?
I see no public comment.
Okay, so I'd like to welcome our applicants. We have, in alphabetical order, Anna Brooks, Justin Fox, Heidi Hanscom, Canton Levine, Alan Lowry, and Laura Montagna. So we will be doing this process in a candidate forum style. So we will start with Anna Brooks and then rotate the order of who goes first for answering each additional question in alphabetical order by last name. So I will ask an opening question, and then the other council members will also ask additional questions. So will we be able to see them on our screens, or?
When they start talking, then they should be the one that will come up on your screen.
All right, so Anna, this first question, you're going to start with this first question, and then I'll just go ahead and go down the list calling in order so that you all don't have to remember when you're answering.
Do you have a time limit to respond?
No, we don't have a time limit set, but just about a minute would be great. Thank you. Okay, so our first question that will go to all the candidates is, why are you interested in becoming a member of the Public Safety Committee? So we'll start with Anna.
Well, my answer to that would be that Arcata has always been a model city for other communities to come and explore different ways to face the challenges that are presented to us in these most interesting times. So I would hear a lot about people not wanting to work, and I don't think that's the way it should be. I think it should be a rewarding experience, but it's going to take a lot of work to achieve the level of integrity that we need here. So I would just like to contribute the time that I have, if it's useful.
Thank you. And so next will be Justin. Why are you interested in becoming a member of the Public Safety Committee?
Yeah, I grew up here and just have such a fond spot in my heart for the city and being here. And I would love to kind of help contribute to its common good and the moving forward of people and their livelihoods and things that they want to pursue, to provide, just help to participate in making this place like a vibrant place for people to come and be their creative, awesome selves. And so, yeah, just wanting to continue just to be a part of helping the city be all that it can be, and listening to the needs that are out there and being a part of the solution to those.
Thank you. And Heidi, why are you interested in becoming a member of the Public Safety Committee?
I am interested in joining the Public Safety Committee because community has always been very near and dear to my heart, as well as a safe environment. I am a Arcata resident, and I just want to continue to see this place blossom. Thank you.
Thank you. And Canton, why are you interested in becoming a member of the Public Safety Committee?
Well, I've lived in Arcata since 2003 and just love this city to death. I just really love everything about Arcata and our community. And as I've watched it change over the years, I've seen that the safety concerns have changed. And while they're continually, this is definitely a safer city than when I got here, I believe that Arcata has unique needs, and that having someone who's been here for a while and seen the history may be very helpful so that I can contribute to the city and help keep it to continue to be a safer and safer place, and hopefully one that attracts outside money and more people to come in.
Thank you. And Alan, why are you interested in becoming a member of the Public Safety Committee?
Well, I follow the news, and I've lived here about 6 years now, so I'm a little familiar with what's been happening publicly. I think of public safety as perhaps the primary mission of government and society, so most fundamental one. And I see there are probably issues here. It's a contentious subject for everyone. So if there's an opportunity to help with that, I'm willing to spend some time on it and try and do so.
Thank you. And so finally, Laura, could you tell us why you're interested in becoming a member of the Public Safety Committee?
Absolutely. I did a documentary in 2019 called Addicts Among Us. It was childhood trauma and addiction in Humboldt County. And I had lived my life, raised my kids here. I've been here 42 years. And from that research, I learned a lot of things that work in our county, specifically in our county, as well as the city of Arcata. And there are some things that don't work. And so right now, being on the Behavioral Health Board, I'm really feeling a chance to make some great positive changes in our town. Coming out of the pandemic, everyone's shooken up a little bit. And so it's a great time to move forward in a positive fashion. And that's why I'm interested. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next question will be coming from Councilmember Schaefer. And Justin, you will be answering this question first.
Great. Thank you for being here, everybody. So starting with Justin, what public safety priorities do you envision the committee working on?
I feel like probably the COVID protocols and how to keep businesses open and people engaging with each other and community, and also staying safe would be something that we'd probably talk about. I definitely notice and have been hearing a lot of concern around the homelessness issue. And so talking through solutions and ways to help folks that are experiencing homelessness. And yeah, I'm interested in the committee. One of the reasons is because of the police and fire and their involvement with the committee, just knowing that they have boots on the ground in all sorts of crisis and trauma situations, and just to be able to be a support for them, and to hear how we can be a help to those who are kind of on those front lines. So yeah, I kind of anticipate and look forward to helping in that way.
Thank you. So Heidi, what public safety priorities do you envision the committee working on?
I envision us working on our local mental health population, as well as the homelessness. I feel that working on that, focusing on increasing what those folks need, would help promote all of our local businesses and our community together.
Awesome, thank you. And same question to Canton. What public safety priorities do you envision the committee working on?
I believe that we continue working on the homelessness issue and on identifying any kind of safety things that might, like what we're deciding to do with the plaza and how we can make sure that it's a safe place after it's renovated with the changes that are happening now, and just over, as well as the COVID protocols, and overall making sure that we have a way to get feedback and for safety for the city.
Great, thank you. And next, going to Alan. Again, what public safety priorities do you envision the committee working on?
I would have to do some research. I did read the report of the Public Safety Task Force that was published about 4 years ago, and it was a very thorough report, I thought. A lot of problems and a lot of recommendations. I'd be curious to know where we stand on those recommendations. Based on the news, I expect a lot of them are unfulfilled still. But obviously the homeless people I mentioned, and the mentally ill and addicted are an issue. Crime areas were identified mostly in commercial spaces, Valley West and Plaza and so forth. And the committee's task also is to try and bring resources and public input together to address those things.
Great, thank you. And next, we are going to Laura. Again, what public safety priorities do you envision the committee working on?
So going over the minutes for the past year, I noticed the Valley West was something that was an issue. The plaza, mental illness, mental health is definitely an issue. And I did walk around some businesses and talk to them, just trying to find out what their issues are. I feel like we've done some good stuff, but I would like to bring some of the street community in as well, who, in talking with some of the people on the street, they have some great ideas on how we can help them be better citizens and help those who are greatly in need. I'm going out with Cooperation Humboldt, I think next Tuesday. They're starting an outreach where they go out to people on the street in Valley West, I believe. And I'm really interested to see how that works and what they're doing. So just overall, making our town safer and making sure everyone has a voice. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Laura. And then last, we're going to Anna. Again, what public safety priorities do you envision the committee working on?
Hi, and thanks again, everyone, for being here. I really appreciate everyone taking the time and the interest. And I have the same concerns that everyone else is bringing up. I think communication is key in addressing, providing the support where it's already in place and strengthen it where it's needed. So mainly, just trying to walk downtown. I don't think everybody has the same issues, but if you just try to walk downtown, you have to walk in the street to not step on people in the businesses at nighttime. And it can be intimidating, and they may act differently to a single female who's out by herself after dark than somebody who may be responding to a situation in a different capacity. So I think the communication is huge, and it's a lot of work. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll be moving on to question 3, which will be Councilmember Matthews, and we're going to start with Heidi.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Heidi, you're up first. The question is, describe any past experience you have working on public safety issues.
Let's see. So, public safety issues. I am a women's self-defense teacher that does deal with a lot of public safety issues. I would like to get more involved with my community and not just with domestic violence. As for other experience, it's pretty small for the moment. I try and do what I can on my own basis and the people that I come into contact with on a daily basis. The other day I ran a pair of my husband's shoes out to a homeless guy that didn't have any shoes on. So right now it's just very self-contained, and I would like to be a part of a committee. So I have a team of people to help me.
Thank you, Heidi. All right, Canton, describe any past experiences you have working on public safety issues.
Well, I believe that a lot of overlap with that was work that I did with a different Arcata City Council committee, Open Spaces and Agriculture, partially because at the time, most open spaces were being congregated by homeless people. And, the plaza is actually an open space. So it was something that came up a lot, was trying to discuss ways to handle the homeless population and safety there indirectly by how parcels of land were handled. And that came up at least maybe every other meeting, at least once, when people were talking about how to handle parcels of land. So I do have some experience with talking about how safety issues can be handled through indirect means, and as well as I have outside of working with that committee, just general experience working and supervising jobs, just with being aware of keeping things safe.
Thank you. Alan, describe any past experience you have working on public safety issues.
Nothing active, I guess you'd say. I've been an observer personally by walking around town each day and reading the local media and belonging to a couple different groups in the area on National Alliance on Mental Illness and Rotary Club, visiting with people in those organizations. But this would be my first active participation.
Thank you so much. Laura, describe any past experience you have working on public safety issues.
So since 2019, I've worked with the CSET team, which is the Community Service Engagement Team in Eureka for Eureka's Police Department. Worked with people that I've met. I ran a poetry project in the jail before COVID and met many people through that who, when they were out either at free meal or in the community, would ask for referrals. How can I find some place to live? I also own a house that I rent to people coming off the street. And I've worked with the home, DHHS's home project, City of Eureka's Uplift project, and Redwood Community Action Agency, just to house people. When I had a retail store for 14 years and got some stuff stolen and a window broken, and through my daughter and myself, we worked to discover who those people might be and worked with law enforcement to work with them to find a solution that worked for everyone. And hopefully they'll remember us as the kind people who said, hey, it's not okay to steal from us, make it right, and then we'll be good. And so that's sort of more boots on the ground. And I guess think that's all I can think of right now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, same question. Anna, describe any past experiences you've had working on public safety issues.
Well, I would say that in a more of an infrastructure setting, I worked in cathodic protection, which is definitely a public safety issue, but it wasn't working with the public very much. It was more tank testing, lines and leak detectors. I came to Arcata in 1998 to work with Dr. Todd McRia and Chief of Police Mel Brown and the first 100 compassionate use act patients, which was an amazing project that took some spearheading and legislation, and it was an amazing experience. And then just in the last decade or so, living at Plaza Point, which is the crown jewel of downtown Arcata, which is designed for seniors and disabled residents, and being here since the beginning, secretarying some of the meetings and talking with the residents and what their safety concerns are, and they have their own little community here. So that's been a lot of years of a lot of different aspects that I'm grateful for, being able to work with the people that I've been able to work with.
Thank you so much. All right, Justin, describe any past experience you have working on public safety issues.
Yeah, a few years ago, we raised our family in Southern California for a lot of my life in Costa Mesa. And I had a chance there to work with a nonprofit, to start a nonprofit that engaged in multiple sectors of the community in cool ways. And one of them was around homelessness. And we were able to do a bunch of inventory asking questions with people there, and then also create a check-in center for them. We were able to sort of respond to the needs that we discovered. And so creating a check-in center where people could drop off their stuff, helping with job interview things, and even a mobile shower truck like thing that came in. And so that was kind of a multi-city agency approach to the homelessness issue there. And we got to see some neat success with all of that, some food distribution things and some other things that really worked in tandem with other groups. And that was really neat. And then I'm not sure if this correlates a lot with public safety, but the education piece was the other part that we played a big role in. So helping the schools, the elementary schools, public schools with the issues that they face as well. We did a backpack drive for students. So hundreds of backpacks for students that didn't have basic supplies, basic needs that they would need for school. And then also I created a mentorship program for at-risk teens in the high schools. So we had mentorship groups for kids who were in that probationary period, about ready to be sort of kicked off or kicked out of school, and to provide retention and a reason for them to stay, and then some of the means for them to cope with what they were challenged with to stay in school. Creating that after school program for those teens was really rewarding as well. And just working with dozens and dozens of volunteers to pull all this together was a real joy. And yeah, I look forward to getting to serve in those kind of ways again.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so moving on to our fourth question, Councilmember Goldstein will be asking that, and we'll be starting with Canton.
Thank you all so much for being here. All right, Canton, what do you see as the role of policing in Arcata?
Well, obviously, it's to keep the city safe, but it is also to notice problems before they actually happen, and to be able to see where there's a dangerous situation, be able to observe it and determine how to stop it either after it's happened, or how to catch dangerous situations that are happening on a regular basis.
Thank you. All right, Alan, same question. What do you see as the role of policing in Arcata?
That's pretty similar to the previous speaker, providing public safety and preventing problems if possible. I understand some of the issues now are more difficult to deal with because of more lenient policies toward petty theft and homelessness and so forth. Try and keep people secure and safe and comfortable with their environment. That's the main mission, I think.
Thank you. Laura, what do you see as the role of policing in Arcata?
I would say I see it the same as the role of policing in our county, to keep people safe. I do think it's evolving. When I ride with the CSET team, I see a different way of interacting with some people. And so right now I feel like policing they're doing way more than what I'm sure they thought they were getting hired to do. Being a resource referral group, cleaning, picking up trash. Like, I cannot tell you, I don't think that should be policing. However, it's something that needs to get done. But watching the CSET team help people get services is something I feel like maybe as a country overall, we're heading more that way. And I guess I just want to say that policing has evolved a lot in the last few years. And we just need to be supportive of all police are doing and of our community at the same time. It's something I think it shouldn't be contentious. We should all be together. When my kids were little, police would be out walking around or on the bike. And I love that about Arcata. And I really miss that. I wish that could come back because I think that's overall a really good thing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, what do you see as the role of policing in Arcata?
Well, I mean, the obvious answer would be, intervening when there's a criminal act in progress. And, the documentation of incidents that do occur is also pretty huge. I think just the presence, like Laura is saying, is a really big thing. A lot of times just the presence will make all the difference in, how rowdy or intoxicated the crowds become. So it's definitely an interesting question. And I think that it's evolving into other things. I think that it shouldn't be evolving into the role of them having to babysit people who just don't want to live responsibly. That's not fair. So, I agree with Laura too, that there's definitely a point where people need to work together on that. It shouldn't be a contentious issue. It should be something where it's kind of everybody's problem, especially if you have children, or vulnerable members of the community that you want to see safe. So I don't know. I think they're doing a good job with what they've got to work with right now.
Thank you. And just a reminder, when you're not speaking, to please mute yourself, everyone. All right, Justin, same question. What do you see as the role of policing in Arcata?
I think the part about safety is really important, of course, as a primary role. But I do see that, I echo some of those things said before about police being a conduit, kind of a referral, knowing what's helpful in a city, knowing how to help individual people with what they might need and how to refer them to the right kind of help that they need. So someone who knows for police to really know the resources that are available, I think is really important. And yeah, one of my best, longest running friends in the city is John Packer, who's a retiring sergeant of Humboldt State University Police and also been at Arcata. And John's presence walking around the plaza and being in the community, he knows every third person he knows by name, knows their stories. And I think that's really important. So a community connector, a community developer is super great.
Thank you. And last but not least, or actually, who did I start with? Oh, yeah, did, right. Okay, Heidi. What role do you see, what do you see as the role of policing in Arcata? Thank you.
Safety is always my primary concern. Safety is always on my mind. I think a great way to increase that is to help educate our citizens on situational awareness. And that way we have more people looking out for not only each other, but for themselves, which I think would help our local community and our local businesses, for everybody to keep an eye out. But I think education on situational awareness is huge. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Okay, so our next question will actually be asked by Councilmember Goldstein, and we will be starting this time with Alan.
All right, Alan, what ideas do you have for reform in public safety that would more deeply connect the police to the community?
I recall when the Chief Brian came here, he made an effort to meet a lot of the community, almost as if he was running for office. I would see him several places around town at the time. I thought that was effective. But obviously, there's not a lot of time that police can devote to that type of activity. I know they're short-staffed as it is, and it's hard to hire people. So I guess I'm a little stumped by that one.
Thank you. Laura, what ideas do you have for reform in public safety that would more deeply connect the police to the community?
Okay, so reform in public safety. I'm not I guess I would say I miss the officers being out and about. So definitely funding all the positions and having those be filled. I just went through the Eureka Police, don't get upset, Eureka Volunteer Police Department training last weekend. And just having interactions with law enforcement on a human level is so important. And it's hard when, if this is your job, you feel like people don't like you. So I really want to bring everybody together, because when we're all part of the same community, whether you're in a uniform or not, and it's important that we all understand that and embrace each other's gifts and see what we can do to help. So anything that I could do, coffee with the cops is a great idea. More walking tours with law enforcement, whatever, bringing people together with law enforcement, I think is really important. So they aren't that scary man. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, what ideas do you have for reform in public safety that would more deeply connect the police to the community?
Well, that's definitely the question of the day. Again, Laura brings up some, important points with, starting your day off feeling like you're resented just for trying to keep people safe. And it doesn't, I don't think it needs to be like that. And I think that it works both ways like that sometimes. I think it's really dangerous to I'm maybe not understanding the question about reforming public safety when I hear people talking about defunding the police, and then the next thing you know, there's a defund the police rally calling the police because somebody ran over somebody, and people are just getting hysterical when it comes to that. So taking away the fear factor, again, Laura, is huge on both sides. And what does need to happen so that that's not an issue, so to remove the fear, and so that it's solution oriented instead of confrontational.
Thank you. All right, Justin, what ideas do you have for reform in public safety that would more deeply connect the police to the community?
I think I would try, although I don't know if it's happened already, but I think I would try some trainings in the police department, some trainings around public engagement, like sort of a reforming for their perspectives, and just like tools that they could use and that would help them in that. And then also that kind of referral, the resource lists, trainings that would help them have the tools and information and ways to refer, I think would be really helpful. So kind of a training sort of situation happening with information, content, skills that they could learn to help them engage with the community better. And then I think strategically putting police in positions in a community in places maybe they weren't seen before, or in unique places where it might be unexpected, but also really pleasant and really helpful, and help see the police in a different light and in a different way. I think I'd start with that.
Thank you. Heidi, what ideas do you have for reform in public safety that would more deeply connect the police to the community?
I think what's helpful to connect anybody more with the community is being able to see that they're not just a police officer, that they have another life. So I love Coffee with a Cop. Every place that I've lived, I've met my local police officers that way. I think Cafe Brio, would be a great place for that. You are downtown in the heart of the plaza. It's supporting a local business. What about playing? I know I can be a competitive person, so I think it would be fun to play games with the police officers. Again, like the Hatchet House, there's another local business we could support. And it's, again, I know their time is very important, and they're already, somebody mentioned, short-staffed. So it doesn't have to be an all-day event, maybe just an hour. And I think any type of engagement with the community to see the police laugh or talk about things that are just on a very common level, if it has to do with groceries or anything common. Thank you.
Thank you. Canton, what ideas do you have for a reform in public safety that would more deeply connect the police to the community?
Yes, I believe that there's a lot of ways where we can work towards community relationship building with the police. It's in the past, I've seen police attend some of our city council events, and I think that's always good for them to be seen that way. But I also think that there are other things like events, forums, panel discussions, making it easier and creating an open, welcome space for police to participate in community events, and being a conduit for police to work with community leaders and lead programs to benefit local youth and things like that.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to our last question that Councilmember Matthews will be asking, and we will be starting with Laura.
All right, Laura. So have you attended a public safety committee meeting? And if so, how do you believe you would best add value to the group?
I tried to attend the last one, and I guess there wasn't a quorum, so it didn't really happen. There was a little bit of discussion. I'm like boots on the ground, let's get stuff done. So I would sign up for a committee. I know that there's a website with some safety information that's supposed to be on it. I would just pick something to do and execute. I like to get things done. I like to go. So that is my experience to date, and I'm ready and willing to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. All right, Anna, have you attended a public safety committee meeting? And if so, how do you believe you would best add value to the group?
I have not been able to attend the public safety committee meetings. Again, the most recent one, and just the whole last year's been so wacky and unpredictable, but I do follow the city council meetings, even if it's just on, on TV at home. And I'm not sure, I have time to contribute. I do have some experience, and if there is a way that I can be helpful to, help fill in the gaps that are caused by the shortages of, staffing and on a volunteer type basis, I would be happy to do things that, like, again, Laura's suggesting trainings or, any kind of clerical work or anything that I could be helpful in. I'm not sure, but I'm happy to help any way that I can fill in the blanks.
Thank you so much, Anna. Okay, Justin, what have you attended a public safety committee meeting? And if so, how do you believe you would best add value to the group?
I have not yet, but I think how I would contribute best is I have a kind of a diplomacy about me, and I'm able to hear a lot of sides, and I have a sense of compassion and empathy for multiple voices. So the ability to kind of hear those voices and to help make a way forward, to help bring a commonality to all that, has been something that I've been able to use in my past. And then I also have this ability and energy to kind of rally people towards the decision or the cause or whatever has been decided. That kind of that energy has been really helpful in the past. So I hope to be able to bring that here.
Thank you so much, Justin. Heidi, have you attended a public safety committee meeting? And if so, how do you believe you would best add value to the group?
I have not attended a meeting yet. I tried to recently, but nobody was in the Zoom room last time. But what I think I would be able to contribute is I am extremely rigorously honest, open-minded, and willing to promote and protect their community.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Canton, have you attended a public safety committee meeting? And if so, how do you believe you would best add value to the group?
I have not attended a public safety committee, but I have watched city council meetings on TV, and as far as what I believe I can contribute, I do believe that it is helpful to have that I've had experience in another Arcata committee for 4 years, and I plan to approach it very similarly with start trying to determine within the first few meetings what the problems are and where I can help the most, because I'm really excited about helping in any way that I can. And I think with the changes in the Arcata community, and with COVID as well, I think that it's going to be more obvious once the meetings start, like where I can help and where help is needed, because the most important thing is identifying where the help is needed.
Thank you so much, Canton. Alan, have you attended a Public Safety Committee meeting? And if so, how do you believe you would best add value to the group?
No, I haven't attended a public safety committee meeting. I am a retired engineer, so I do have discretionary time, and I have a habit of gathering information, trying to stay open-minded and be analytical about the best way to solve problems or monitor the situation. And so that would be what I would bring.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for making this commitment.
So that concludes our committee interviews, and I want to echo Meredith's thanks. We all do. Thank you for applying. I think 6 people showing up for 2 vacancies really reflects well on our community, and so thank you for going through this process. And we will be discussing this later on in our 6 o'clock meeting, and we will be hopefully making some selections at that point. So thank you again. And it looks like it's about 10 to 6, so we will take a 10-minute break and come back at 6 o'clock for our regularly scheduled meetings. Good evening, and thank you for viewing the October 20th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as teleconference in response to local efforts to reduce the COVID-19 virus. New cases continue to be reported in Humboldt County. The city urges residents to get vaccinated as our best defense against the virus and the personal and economic impacts it has on our town. Before we start with our regular council meeting agenda, we do have a special meeting item to open up. So to start tonight's meeting, we will do the flag salute. Please join me if you would like to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Atkins Salazar.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Mayor Watson is absent.
Thank you. So our special meeting agenda item, Mayor Watson is not present tonight due to personal reasons, and for continued efficient operations of city business, tonight we will open the election for the replacement of mayor and vice mayor. May I have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening. So several years ago, the City Council implemented a suggested rotation to the elected mayor and vice mayor, which is outlined in your protocol manual, which also happens to be in your packet this evening. The rotation of the mayor and vice mayor is based on the length of time that a council member has served without being in the elected mayor position, and if needed, the total vote count of specific elections if two or more members were elected in the same election cycle. In our specific situation this evening, the rotation would result in Stacey Atkins Salazar as mayor and Emily Goldstein as vice mayor. The protocol, I just want to share, does also allow a council member to decline to serve as mayor or vice mayor. And in this case, that nomination would just pass 1 year on the rotation. And then the next council member on that list would fall into that position. So they would just drop back 1 year. But again, the protocol manual is just suggestions, so you don't have to follow that this evening, but that is how the rotation would work.
Thank you. So before we discuss this or make any motions, is there anyone from the public that's wishing to comment on this item tonight?
I'll just remind the public, if you are logged on to the Zoom meeting webinar, click on the raise your hand. And if you are on phone, then go ahead and press *9. I see no public comment for this item.
Okay, so that takes it back to council for discussions or motions.
I would like to make a motion to elect Stacey Atkins Salazar as mayor and Emily Grace Goldstein as vice mayor. Until December 22nd, 2022, 21, 22, 22, 22.
Second.
So I've been nominated for mayor, and Councilmember Goldstein has been nominated for vice mayor through December of 2022. All those in favor? Aye.
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 The motion carries. Before we move on, is there any further discussion on this particular agenda item tonight?
Yes, I'd like to read a statement and make a motion. So I move to have a vote of no confidence for Councilmember Brett Watson. For the public listening in, this means that I move to hold a vote to determine if the council believes Councilmember Watson is fit to serve on Arcata City Council. We have no legal ability to remove him from the City Council. However, I believe we owe it to the people of Arcata to make it clear we do not align ourselves with the actions of Councilmember Watson. This last week, information came to light regarding alleged behaviors of Councilmember Watson that negatively affected the city and some of its staff members. It is our responsibility now as a council to protect the well-being of our employees and the ability of our city to run smoothly. While to some of you, it may seem unfair that we are moving forward with this vote of no confidence when Councilmember Watson is not present, we did feel it was important to be transparent with the residents of Arcata and share that this decision of leadership rotation and this proposed vote were made based on a body of information, although some of this cannot be shared publicly at this time. I have previously conveyed my thoughts to Councilmember Watson, and he has been made aware that this vote would move forward at this evening's council meeting. I do not take this decision lightly. I have shared all I can at this time, and the city will address the alleged actions in a confidential manner. At this time, I move we vote no confidence for Brett Watson's service as an Arcata City Council member.
I second that movement.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's unanimous. I would just like to say that Vice Mayor Goldstein summed up the situation quite well, and we've been elected to help run and guide the city of Arcata, and that's exactly what we want to do and are trying to do. And so it's important that we move forward. And so to reiterate, this was not taken lightly. Okay, so with that, we're going to adjourn the special meeting and open our regular meeting. So we will be going offline for about a minute so that our technology can catch up, and then we will come back on. So we'll see you in about 1 minute. Welcome back to our regularly scheduled council meeting for October 20th. I just would like to remind you that if you would like to make a comment during the meeting, either at the 2 open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are 2 ways to do so. If you are logged on to the Zoom meeting webinar, click the raise your hand on the right-hand side of your screen. When it is time for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, the clerk will unmute you. You will have 2 minutes to comment. You can also access the meeting by phone. Call the number at the bottom of the screen, enter the meeting ID also at the bottom of the screen, press *9 on your phone. This will raise your hand. When it is time for public comment on the item on which you wish to speak, the clerk will unmute your phone. You will hear a prompt that will indicate your phone is unmuted. So agenda item 3 is ceremonial matters. And so Councilmember Schaefer will be reading a proclamation in recognition of California Retired Teachers Week.
Thank you. As both a daughter and a granddaughter of California retired teachers, I'm happy to read this proclamation in recognition of California Retired Teachers Week. Whereas the California Retired Teachers Association was formed by Laura E. Settle in 1929 at the start of the Great Depression with the goal of relieving the economic hardships suffered by retired teachers, and for 92 years has been a leading advocate for providing teachers with sufficient retirement income. And whereas the California Retired Teachers Association also provides continuing support to active and future teachers, providing grants, scholarships, and donations totaling more than $600,000 a year. And whereas a vast majority of California's retired teachers share a commitment to improve their communities through volunteer activities totaling more than 4,000 hours of service. And whereas the annual dollar value of this volunteer time donated by retired teachers throughout the state nearly reached $65 million during the most recent reporting period. And whereas last year in Arcata, local retired teachers donated $2,500 in scholarships and $500 to each of our museums and the Sequoia Park Education Fund. Additionally, they volunteered their time in schools, museums, hospitals, the Little Red Schoolhouse, food bank, and other community organizations. Now, therefore, it be proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes November 7th through 13th, 2021 as California Retired Teachers Week in Arcata and encourages residents to honor all teachers and acknowledge the vital role that retired teachers fulfill in every community in California. Signed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schaefer. Thank you, Councilmember Schaefer. Next, we have reports by commission or committees, and I don't believe that we have any. Okay, so moving on to item 5 is our early communications. So this 15-minute time period is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Any request that requires council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council at this time are limited to 2 minutes, and we can take up to 7 speakers. Please raise your hand if you are on Zoom or press star 9 if you are calling in by phone and wish to make a comment. And just to remind, this is for items that are not on the agenda.
Our first speaker will be call-in user 2. Go ahead, call-in user 2. Can you unmute yourself? Call-in user. All right, we'll move on and come back to call-in user. Go ahead, Mark Delaney.
This is Mark Delaney. Oh, let me turn that one off. You can hear me? I understand you?
We can.
Okay, I would just like to remind you that Arcata has an ordinance for public participation for 3 minutes. 5 to 3 minutes, not 2 minutes. Also, I want to report a technical problem. In a special meeting, there was no volume. I couldn't hear anything. I don't know if you ever got to public comments, but I have a public comment about the United States. You do not go by allegations. People are innocent until proven guilty. Brett has been a wonderful person in the county, a wonderful volunteer. I've worked with him in the county's Homeless Solutions and Housing Trust Fund Committee. And in my 3 years of experience with San Francisco mayors as a senior consultant there, I'm appalled at Arcata's continued due process, just not even following your own rules. Brett is a wonderful servant, and he should be given every opportunity to go through a legal process to ascertain his guilt or innocence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, can you unmute yourself? Call in user 2. All right, we'll go to Sue. Go ahead.
Hi, my computer is actually working correctly right now.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I just have 2 comments. The first one is that I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but on the Zoom, it's very difficult to know which council member in actual fact is speaking. So to know who has made a motion and who has not made a motion is actually quite complex. I don't know if there's a way to deal with that right now. And the second is you have just made in the special meeting, you made a second agenda item, and you did not open that up to public comment. I'm not sure whether or not that motion was permitted to be open to public comment, but you made the motion, seconded the motion, approved the motion, but there was no opening to the public. And I'm just not quite clear how that process worked. I've just read the agenda and I couldn't figure it out.
Thank you, Sue. Do we have anyone else?
I see no other public comment.
Okay, thank you. And there will be time at the end of the meeting for more items that are not on the agenda. So next we will go to the consent calendar, item number 7. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. So we have item A, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of October 6th, 2021. Item B, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of October 13th, 2021. C, biweekly report on general warrants. D, approve the purchase of one 2022 Ford Escape hybrid vehicle and award a purchase contract to Harper Ford Motors for a total of $30,083.87, including tax and tire fee. Authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. E is designate an authorized representative for the State Water Resource Control Board's area program. Is there any council member that would like to remove an item? Okay, is there any member of the of our staff that would like to remove an item?
Nope.
Okay, and anyone from the public that would like to remove an item?
Nope, seeing none.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion on the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Schaefer and a second by Councilmember Matthews. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes with 4 ayes. Okay, so that takes us into old business. So we have the discussion and consideration of adoption of ordinance number 1552, adding Chapter 5, Residential Rental Inspection Program, to Title 8 of the Building Regulations of the Arcata Municipal Code. Waive reading of the text and consent to read by title only. May we please have a staff report?
Yes, thank you. So tonight I'm just going to review the Arcata proposed residential rental inspection program, and then we'll go through at the end sort of what the council's options are tonight. So the program goals, just to review, were to address substandard housing issues that have been raised both to the city, to council members over a number of years, to achieve some minimum health standards and safety standards, to overall improve the city's housing stock, enhance and preserve the quality of life for all of the tenants, homeowners, and neighborhood, while working collaboratively with landlords, tenants, and neighbors to improve this program over time. The program, just in the very basics, would be required for all residential units that are rented. There are a few exemptions that will be covered on the next slide. All property owners will have to register for the program, and they'll pay an annual registration fee. That fee will range from $20 to $200 per parcel per year, depending on the number of units on the parcel, and we'll go through that in a little bit more detail. All required units will be inspected at least one time during the first 3 years of the program by a City of Arcata inspector. After the first inspection, properties that pass the inspection and meet the program criteria can elect to either remain in the standard program and be inspected by the city once every 3 years, or they can opt to self-certify by inspecting each of their units every year and maintaining records of the inspections. After 5 years of self-inspection, the property owner then would attest to their self-inspections, and they could at that point either convert to the city standard program or request to be continued to be enrolled in the self-certification program. There are a few exceptions to the program. Those would be rooms that are rented to an individual in an owner-occupied single-family residence, hotel or motels for stays that are subject to what we call TOT, Transient Occupancy Tax, so less than 30 days. Units that are already inspected by another governmental authority, mobile home parks, and the newly constructed residential units that are less than 5 years old. The program fees are proposed if you have a residential dwelling unit. If you have 1 to 2 on a parcel, it'd be $20 a year. 3 to 4 on a parcel, $25 a year. 5 to 10 units on a parcel, $30 a year. 11 to 19 units on a parcel, $50 a year. 20 to 49 units on a parcel, $75 per year. 50 or above would be $200 a year. In addition to the annual registration fee, there would be a charge at the time of inspection. So the year that your property was inspected, if let's just say you had a single-family home that you rented, then the cost of that inspection would be $70. If you had multiple units on a parcel, it would be $70 an hour, and we would do as many units as we could each hour. If the parcel needed to be, the site needed to be re-inspected because it did not pass inspection, then that would be an additional $70. And if you qualify for the self-certification program, then the year that you submit your 5 years of self-certification, attesting that you've done your certification, there would be a $40 per parcel on just that 5th year for us to process that self-certification. I'm going to go through just a couple of examples because I know the fees with this, while probably not the bulk of the concern in the program because the fees are pretty low, they can also be a little confusing. So I just put up 2 examples, and the first one would be if you had 1 to 2 units on a parcel. You would pay $20 a year for your registration. At some point in that first 3 years, you would pay an initial $70 for your first inspection. And then you would decide either self-certification or continuous city inspection. So on a 5-year cost, let's say for 1 to 2 units on a parcel, you would pay $20 for each of those years, $100. You would pay $70 for the first city inspection. And then in that, I'll call it the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th column over. So these are the cost if you choose to self-certify after that. Then you would pay $40 one time for that self-certification. So for 5 years of the program, it would be $210. If you chose to stay within the city program, or you had to stay within the city program because you didn't meet the qualifications for self-certification, then it would be $240 for that first 5-year period. By contrast, if you had 40 units on a parcel, you would pay $75 a year. You would pay $70 an hour for the inspection of those units. And then after that, if you qualified for self-certification, you would still just pay the $40. So a 5-year total with self-certification after the first inspection would be $75 times 5 years. I estimated about 3 hours to do sort of a random sampling of those 40 units. So that would be $210. That's also obviously going to be completely contingent on the condition of the units that we're inspecting. But let's say you do pass and you are eligible for self-certification, then you would have one $40 fee. So 5-year total for 40 units would be $625. And if you had 40 units without self-certification, the total cost for the 5 years of the program would be $795. So those are just a couple of examples, and we'd be happy to go through others if people had questions. The options for consideration for the council this evening. So on September 15th, the council did introduce Ordinance 1552. Based on feedback really from the council meeting that night, as well as subsequent public meetings that staff has had, and phone calls and emails and input that we've received over the last month, there are a few suggested changes to the ordinance that are included in your packet in a track changes version. So your options tonight would be if you wanted to adopt an ordinance and move it forward, you would need to adopt the original ordinance that was introduced on September 15th. Alternatively, you could have discussion tonight, make any additional changes, and reintroduce Ordinance 1552, accepting those staff recommendations that you want to include and any other changes you would like to make. And then that would return at your next meeting for a final reading and adoption. Or certainly you can direct staff to continue research, to continue public outreach, to answer some specific questions, and then bring back that feedback to you. So that was just a very quick overview, and I'm really happy to answer any questions, but I know we've had lots of discussion in public meetings on this already.
Okay, does anyone have questions or discussion for this particular item?
Okay, I can open it up. So just a few points that I want to talk about and are kind of questions, but a lot of my questions were answered by the helpful in the packet, the kind of draft FAQ that is out. But just some of concerns that I have, mostly based around outreach and kind of developing a program that's really going to work for everybody and have a lot of buy-in that can be successful. I've done a lot of research and read a lot of articles about programs that were both successful and not successful, and seeing that in communities where there was a lack of buy-in from both tenants and landlords, and also, realtors in the community, homeowners, everybody that can be, basically a stakeholder in this, that these programs would often fail or people would be unhappy with them. And I also think that it's important to kind of add maybe some elements that would provide even greater tenant protection. The state of California does a very good job at protecting tenants, but also being able to include things perhaps like rent control or expanding on state guidelines on eviction, and also providing funds for relocation if in that extreme circumstance that happens to tenants and landlords are unable or unwilling to pay relocation. I think including elements like that in a program like this could be, very helpful, and also, kind of include those safeguards to protect tenants, because that really at the core, a program like this is to protect tenants, but I do have some concerns about how this will not do that. First of all, the checklist, there are some few things on there that kind of concern me, especially checklist items that actually kind of are more targeting tenant actions rather than, just the state of the house and landlord action, or I guess in this case, lack of action. And just concerns about things such as item 1.3, storage of junk and rubbish and or overgrown vegetation that is oftentimes a burden on the tenant. And so especially I think targeting folks that might not have the resources or ability or money to be able to deal with things like that. And then also item 1.5, the inoperable and unregistered vehicles. Again, I feel like that particularly targets tenants, especially low-income tenants that might not, be able to afford to remove that kind of stuff, or, might be in a transitionary period and, they might have their inspection at the wrong time and they've got a, junk car sitting in the side yard. So I think some of the stuff on that checklist, might more so target tenants and actually have a negative impact and repercussion on tenants when, the intent is to support tenants and, not have to have them, make sure that they're not the ones always having to call code enforcement. But I think making sure that we have a really comprehensive checklist that isn't targeting certain tenant actions as well is important. And then also I would really like to see, and I guess the option was brought up as that third option tonight, to kind of have more outreach by staff, to kind of create a diverse stakeholder working group and to do better outreach and kind of make a program that's going to work for everybody. I mean, I know one example is, I know Seattle is obviously much bigger than Arcata, but they had a working group that worked for over 6 months, meeting monthly, if not more often, to kind of develop this program beforehand. And so I know that we've received a lot of public comment, especially from local agencies and local landlords that feel like they are surprised by this coming forward. And, even for myself, having only had one update before this, and then this is only the second meeting that we're seeing this, I feel like I don't have enough, information, and I don't feel comfortable enough moving forward on this yet tonight without more outreach. And then another just question I wanted to ask, or I guess a concern to bring up, is just that this seems right now a very large program for the city to implement, and that if we were to successfully implement it, I think we need a little bit more time, first of all, to hire the necessary building officials who will be doing these inspections. I currently believe we're already down one building official and then would need to hire another one in addition, so we're looking at hiring 2 building officials for this. And then also, building an online database for this kind of information and the, kind of, because I know that was spoken about, the kind of extent that would take, more time to kind of develop something that's going to be really successful when it comes out. So yeah, that's where I'm standing right now.
Yeah, I think Sarah pretty much echoed a lot of the concerns I had as well. And, I appreciate all of your comments and all of the extensive research you've done. I have, in the last several weeks, talked to a lot of folks as well that have concerns. And one of some of the most resounding feedback I did get was the creation of more focus groups and more conversations with large property owners, medium-sized, small landlords and tenants too, and have a real comprehensive task force to really nail down what this should look like. So I definitely agree it needs some more work. So thank you.
I would agree. I think the feedback we've been hearing, it's clear that more conversation needs to be had, more education and outreach. I've had tenants reach out saying that their landlords are saying if this is passed, they're going to be evicted, which is not true. And so I think, Councilmember Schaefer said it beautifully that we need to ensure that this ordinance has strong tenant protections and that also we are doing outreach and listening to landlords and getting their buy-in for this to be successful. So I agree as well.
And I just want to also thank the city for all the work that they've put into coming up with this very comprehensive thing. And I know it was not a small undertaking. So we appreciate that and the more work that we'll task you to do moving forward.
Yeah, and to echo that, I think that we're all on the same page with definitely wanting to recognize staff's hard work, and this is in no reflection it's not to be reflecting poorly on them. We just think that there needs to be a little more time devoted to this. A lot of my notes do echo what Councilmember Schaefer opened with. But if you look at the very first page of the ordinance, item C, it says, the City Council further finds and declares the desire to nurture the stock of safe and sanitary rental housing in the city through a partnership of owners, tenants, the city, and the community. So I really think that word partnership is kind of what we're all speaking to this evening. In order to effectively work together, we need to have a significant level of buy-in from the community, and at this point in time, I believe that this aspect is still lacking. So I would like to allow for time for more outreach and collaboration. Since our last discussion of this item, I've received an enormous amount of communications regarding this proposed ordinance. I also spent time talking to Chief Justin McDonald, our fire chief, as well as the fire prevention team, and they had some good input that we could use towards this. For a few people in general have been categorically in support of or against the ordinance, but the majority of people, including those that own and manage, like the large-scale rental complexes, actually support the intention of the ordinance. They're just not in support of it as it is currently written. They feel that's a lot of the feedback that I think we've all received as that there's just some practical aspects that maybe are going to be hard to transition. In conversations that I've had with people, there have been many valid constructive criticisms and concerns that were raised, and along with a lot of possible solutions. So people weren't just complaining, but really had some good ideas. So I think it kind of reflects what everybody here is saying. But in my opinion, for an ordinance that will directly affect so many of our residents, including renters, my suggestion is that we authorize our city manager to create a working group or advisory group of a variety of experienced individuals to see if we can craft an ordinance that is more widely supported. And I would like to see it done as an advisory group or a subgroup rather than like a Zoom meeting, because it would, in my opinion, to have a working group of people like what you mentioned that Seattle did, if we have people that are willing to come and put in that time so that they can be in a room with staff and actually have conversations and back and forth. So, and I feel like our city manager, would be able to put such a thing together. She knows who, who to reach out to. So that's my opinion on that.
I really love that idea, and I think that would really meet a lot of the needs that we've been having asked to us. I would encourage that at least one work group member be somebody who is a renter who has had poor experiences with living conditions in Arcata. I think that it's easy to say, oh, it's not that bad. Not that anyone is saying that, but that, if you're not living through it, I think it's not quite the same. And so I would just encourage that we have somebody who's actually lived through, dealing with poor rental conditions to speak to their own experience and maybe the experience of others that they've heard.
Yeah, and one of the other, some of the other feedback I got would be along with this, maybe crafting some language and some, ways to help maybe landlords that are struggling to bring their buildings up to code, some resources to help them kind of be able to do that on their own before this is even enacted, and give them some tools.
And for the subgroup, I definitely agree that we need to have at least a renter on there, and preferably with, the experience that Vice Mayor Goldstein mentioned. I think it would also be wise to have, if we're, to have like a property manager or owner, and maybe of a couple different levels of, someone that's a larger scale operator, and then someone that's very small, maybe only has 1 or 2 rentals, just to get that difference of opinion. So I think what we all want is just to be really diverse, so we can cover our bases and the community can really, truly feel like they participated in this process and made a difference. Do we need a motion on that, or can we?
We've got 3 in the queue right now for public comment.
Okay, let's turn to public comment. Thank you.
All right, first will be David Nims, followed by Mark Delaney. Go ahead, David.
Good evening. Thank you for your thorough discussion and consideration of this, and not rushing it to a vote. I'm an attorney with the law firm Jansen Malloy. We represent Strombeck Properties and its principal, Steve Strombeck. I wrote a letter to the Building and Engineering Department October 5th, expressing some concerns about the city ordinance as written. I'll simply direct the city council to that letter and mention that it's heartening to see that the city is seeking further community input, and rather than making more specific comments, I think my client would be interested in engaging with the city to craft a well-reasoned ordinance that will achieve these noble objectives. So thank you, and I have no further comments at this time.
Thank you, David.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can.
A couple of things. I just want to report that the technical problems still exist. Would you please use nameplates, because it's very hard to identify you all. The second person on the left, screen position 2 for me, I applaud her position. The fourth person on the far right, I applaud her position. Again, my expertise, I've worked with this. When I lived in Arcata, I was on the Historic Housing Review Committee. Now I'm on the Housing Trust Fund Homeless Solutions Committee. I think this effort is very good effort, but you've exempted all the worst people, the units that you really need to be inspecting. You're going to burden the already unaffordable housing in Arcata. It's not a good idea. It's a good idea to inspect the mobile housing. It's a good idea to inspect all the other housing that's not inspected on HQS. I'm an HQS inspector. I've developed 10,000 units in San Francisco of affordable housing according to Spur. This is not a good program. It can be a good program. It could be a great program, but you're exempting the people that are the very, very worst. I have 2 other comments. I don't know how you want to do this in protocol, because I did advise you that your own Arcata protocol manual says, ordinance says 3 to 5 minutes. I'd appreciate if you did that, or the Brown Act allows you to comment on that and say, no, I'm wrong. So I appreciate that. And then I'd like to come back at the end and ask if I can run for mayor in Arcata when I'm not a resident of Arcata. Thank you very much. And I hope you continue to work on this program, and I would maybe help you.
Thank you, Mark. Next will be call-in user 3. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Go ahead, call-in user 3. Are you able to unmute yourself? All right, call-in user 3. I'm going to ask you to unmute via Zoom. Do you get anything? All right, I can't seem to get him to unmute. All right, I think that is our last public speaker. Sorry, call-in user. Oh, wait, you're there. You're on. Well, you're muted again. You were so close. All right, we'll see if call-in user 3 comes back. We'll turn it back. Oh, we do have a couple more. Go ahead, Anna.
Hi, I'm a parent with lots of experience with a lot of these issues. I'm going to be happy to follow up with all of this. I'm just not familiar with the ordinance, but it's really important and a lot of things on both sides. No, just I was just thinking thank you.
Thank you, Anna. All right, there's no more public comment.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So do we, I think we're all in agreement of how to proceed. Do we need a motion on this?
I feel like that's ample direction. We'll just continue working, and we will pull that together, and I'll just give you an update at your next meeting. It'll be fine. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so for new business, we have appoint 2 members to the Public Safety Committee for terms expiring. So we have 2 different terms, one that expires of September 30th of 2022 and one that expires September 30th of 2024. So I wanted to thank the 6 people that did apply and interview for this position. We appreciate that. Do we have any questions or comments from council?
I was really grateful and impressed by all of you. I thought all 6 of you did a really great job, and these are never easy discussions. I would say for me, Justin Fox and Laura Montagna both stood out for me in terms of their background and their experience. So I just wanted to put those 2 names out there. But everyone really did a really wonderful job. So thank you all for applying.
Yes, as someone that has served on committees before, I just really appreciate your willingness to devote time, to the public. And I also thought that Justin Fox and Laura Montagna were standouts to me as well. But thank you so much, everybody. There's lots of other committees that have vacancies. So please if you're interested in serving the city, I'd encourage you to look at other committees.
Agreement. And I was going to make a motion. I just am unsure if these folks have preferences about the 2 terms that they are serving and dates and whether they will be able to fulfill those terms. But do I have to specify, which ones when I make the motion, or does it matter? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it would be helpful if we specified which was in which slot, and whoever gets selected for 2022, if they want to continue, that will come before you then.
Okay, great.
Okay, so before we go any further, let's see if there's any members of the public wanting to comment on this item.
I have, hand went down. Oh, no, hand's still up. Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I had 2 more comments on the last item. On the housing program you're trying to develop, the Honorable Mayor Brett Watson had suggested at the Housing Trust Fund Homeless Solutions Committee that you consider vacancy taxes, because I think there's about 600 empty vacant or
Mr.
partially
Delaney,
inhabited at the time.
I'm sorry to stop you, but we're just taking comment on this particular item. So would you like to make
Okay, I'll go on to this item.
Yeah,
It's
thank
very
you.
difficult to join a committee in Arcata because it's so controlled by the community development director. Your last community development director left in disgrace, and his deputy is now in charge, and he manipulates the committees. And no one's going to do that. No one wants to be a marionette. So good luck.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Do we have anyone else?
No other public comment.
Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure. I move that we appoint Justin Fox to the Public Safety Committee for a term ending September 30th, 2022, and to appoint Laura Montagna to a term on the Public Safety Committee ending September 30th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to appoint Justin Fox and Laura Montagna. That was made by Councilmember Schaefer and seconded by Councilmember Matthews. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes with 4 votes of aye. Okay, so our next step is to conduct a public hearing to receive input regarding unmet transit needs and direct staff to forward all comments to the Humboldt County Association of Governments. May we please have a staff report?
I'm just going to introduce our transit manager, Leanne Schultze. Leanne, do you want to go ahead and open this agenda item?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or actually ladies, City Council, City of Arcata employees, and the public. So annually, the Humboldt County Association of Governments, HCOG, reviews the unmet transit needs through a multi-jurisdictional public hearing process throughout Humboldt County. As part of the annual process, HCOG encourages member entities to conduct separate public hearings, so every city has a public hearing, and receive local comments. Comments can also be mailed in, emailed in, and telephoned in prior to December 31st, 2021 to be included in this year's report of findings. You can send your comments regarding Arcata Mad River Transit System directly to me at Arcata Mad River Transit System at 736 F Street in Arcata. You can email them to me. HCOG office will also take your comments directly, and you can mail them to attention Beth Burks at 611 I Street, Suite B in Eureka, 95501. And we will take them at any time and even throughout the year, because we hold them, we put them together, and then we bring them back towards the end of the year to make our Unmet transit.
All right, thank you, Leanne. Back to the council.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from the council?
Should we talk about unmet transit needs? Can I suggest one? I guess that's the point, right? Something that I've just heard from constituents would be increased bus times in the evenings, especially for HSU students trying to get home from campus late, and especially between Eureka and Arcata later in the evenings is a request that I've heard a lot of people say that they would ride the bus more if service was offered later into the evenings. Thank you.
Perfect. I am writing it down.
Okay, so at this time, we will open it up to the public for comments on this particular agenda item.
I see no public comments on unmet transit needs. But just to remind the council, these meetings happen all over the county, so I'm sure there will be lots of comments that come in overall for the year. But no comments tonight.
Okay, and just so to clarify for the public, any of the comments generated during this public hearing process will be submitted to HCOG for inclusion in the annual Unmet Transit Needs Report or findings. So thank you for contributing, and we'll move on to the next item. All right, so next item under new business is to review and consider revisions to and approval of the City Council Protocol Manual. So could we please have a staff report?
Yeah, thank you. So this item comes before you every 2 years after the year after an election, and it is just the opportunity for the whole council and any new council members to review the protocol manual. In general, the protocol manual is just a compilation of what councils of the past have considered best practices to guide your decision-making and your public process. So there are just a few staff-suggested cleanup items in the protocol manual this evening, and it's very minor, but it's just your chance to ask questions or to suggest changes, and then we will update photos and make sure that you all have. It is nice to have kind of a written copy of that protocol manual that you can carry with you, not at all times, but during city business times, just to guide you as you move forward.
Okay, are there any comments or questions from members of the council? Okay, so I'll just say we were given this when we were elected, and it was helpful then, and it was also helpful now to read through as a reminder, so I appreciate the protocol manual and for staff's input on it. And so I think next we'll go to public comment.
All right, we have one in the queue for public comment. Mark, go ahead.
Hi, I appreciate getting some more time. Could you please read the section on the existing protocol ordinance? It's not a manual, it's an ordinance, and on how long you give speakers to talk, because it's 3 to 5 minutes, not 2. And I also would appreciate an answer to this question. The Brown Act allows you to respond briefly to questions brought up in the public that are not on the agenda. Thank you very much.
And I'll just respond to that by saying I'm quite sure that after hearing this public comment multiple times, our lawyer is looking at that and will update us on it, but we don't have that information in front of us right now. So if it is something that needs to be corrected, I apologize, and we will most definitely correct that, but we aren't able to directly answer that right now at this moment. Do we have any other members of the public?
There are no other members of the public.
Okay, I believe that takes us to our oral and written. Oh, we did not vote.
Move forward with the suggested changes, so I just need a motion tonight.
I'm just trying to move on.
I move that we approve the suggested changes to the revised City Council Protocol Manual 2021.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Schaefer and a second by Vice Mayor Goldstein. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes with 4 ayes. Okay, so now we will move on to our last section. So this is, again, a chance for oral and communications from the public for items that were not on the agenda. So for this last section, we will be providing you with 3 minutes for time to speak. So yeah, if there's anybody wishing to comment on anything that was not on the agenda, now is your turn.
All right, and we do have, our first speaker is Mark Delaney, and I think this will in part answer your previous question, that this oral communications at the end of the meeting is the time where we have traditionally ensured at least 3 minutes. So go ahead, you should be allowed to talk. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you again. I appreciate it. But I see you kicked it up to 3 minutes, and I'm wondering what the changes that you just approved were. Are those on the staff packet? Because I didn't see them and I didn't hear you discuss them. And I think that one of the changes might be that you're lowering it from 3 to 5 minutes to 2 minutes, which is just crazy because you asking over and over again for input on these things that you're proposing, but yet you're cutting it down. 2 minutes, 1 minute, how about 15 seconds? Will that be okay? Just people raise their hand, say yes or no? This is a democracy. The other question I had was, am I able to run as for mayor in Arcata, even though I don't live in Arcata? Because you all don't represent me. I don't vote for you. You're making decisions that affect me, but I don't vote for you. That's unconstitutional. And that's going to be a problem in the near future. The question is, did you just change it to 3 minutes because the protocol manual says, and the ordinance says, Arcata's ordinance on protocol speaking with the council says 3 to 5 minutes, which you have continually neglected tonight. Sorry to chastise you, but really.
You are absolutely welcome to your opinion.
It's not an opinion. It's not an opinion. It's in the ordinance. Read the ordinance. You said you don't read the ordinance. Read the ordinance. Thank you.
You're welcome. Karen, did you have a response for that?
Just to clarify, there weren't any suggested changes in your protocol manual tonight that had anything to do with oral communication time periods on your agenda. When the City Council many years ago instituted a second period for oral communications, at that time, there were many people that were, at that time we were in-person meetings, that came and sat through very, very lengthy meetings to simply make a quick announcement at the end of the meeting. It could have been the, the Oyster Festival or, something. And so the council instituted an early oral communications and tried to set aside just 15 minutes. So in that time frame, they tried to get 7 speakers at 2 minutes each, recognizing that we do have the standard oral communications at the end of the meeting, that we would always allow a limit of 3 minutes at the end of the meeting when we've got time, if people waited through, the rest of the meeting. So I don't know if that's part of the confusion, but I did want to just ensure that there weren't any changes that were made to that in your protocol manual tonight.
And I want to add, too, those times are explicitly stated in the agenda. In early oral communications, it says 2 minutes, and in the later communications, it says 3 minutes. So it's indicated in the agenda that is released before the meeting.
Do we have any other public input?
No, we do not. Thank you.
Okay, so that will move us to council and staff reports. So I believe our finance director, Andrea, has a bit of a financial update for us.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I will share my screen, so just let me know if you can see the PowerPoint slide. And 1 second. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. So tonight I will provide an update for city financial activity through September 30th of 2021. Within your packet are fund balance breakouts starting on page 233, followed by summary revenues and expenditures, and then various tracking reports. As you will recall, heading into our fiscal year 2021 budget, we included conservative estimates in order to prepare our city for the negative impacts of COVID-19 and the potential fallout of the pandemic. I first wanted to start off to say I'm happy to report that our general fund has ended our fiscal year 2021 with a surplus of over $1.4 million. This is due in part to several revenue streams performing greater than budget expectations. And this includes, but is not limited to, sales tax, transactions and use tax, transient and occupancy tax, as far as the revenue streams. And then as far as cost saving areas for the city included materials and services, personnel services, and capital outlays that help contribute to our $1.4 million surplus. And for more detailed information, I ask that you please see packet page 226 and 227 for additional breakouts on those revenue sources and the drivers, and the same for the expenditure sources and the various drivers for the decreases to general fund budget. So moving into fiscal year 2022, various concerns and reassurances related to unemployment benefits and claims. The availability to claim extended unemployment benefits ended in early September of 2021. This includes various federal and state programs. With less income, there's a potential that citizens will have less dollars and less disposable income available to spend in the local economy. An associated reassurance is that the unemployment rate for Humboldt County is 6.1% as of August of 2021 versus our pandemic peak of 15.2% in April of 2020. Pre-pandemic, the unemployment rate was hovering around 4%. Although improvement has occurred, we are not yet back at pre-pandemic levels. Concerning our water and wastewater customer consumption levels, those have not yet returned back to pre-pandemic levels. We also could see the consumption levels impacted negatively if drought restrictions are enacted for Arcata. Some reassurances related to the water and wastewater consumption decreases we're seeing is that these revenue sources are currently on track compared to budget through Q1 of 2021. Those revenue sources also include year 2 of our previously adopted 5-year rate increases of 1.5% for water and 10% for wastewater to fund operational costs and capital project costs for our city. Then we also have the overarching supply chain disruption. Issues are occurring with being able to quickly move goods to their end location from point of origin. This can continue to impact manufacturers, retailers, and consumers as we head into the holiday season and into calendar year 2022. If goods or supplies are difficult to procure, this can impact sales and tax revenues negatively. Consumers are also currently experiencing increased prices of goods due to inflation and increased demand. The city will continue to monitor as these factors impact both our revenues and our expenditures from a city budget and financial tracking perspective. Good news overall is that our sales tax, our transaction use tax revenues are on track currently compared to projected budget, and the same goes for our TOT, or transient and occupancy tax. So for our sales tax, there is a tracking report for the revenues, which is currently included on page 258 of the council report. This chart is a tracking mechanism to compare actual revenues versus city forecasted revenues, and also against our third-party consultant, HDL. We are currently exceeding September 2020 revenues by about $18,000. We are on track overall budget-wise. As the city receives additional funding through November of 2021, we'll have a better idea of what the sales tax revenue drivers are for the first fiscal year quarter. In the council packet, I wanted to also point out that there's an additional column versus a presentation included for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. And this is there for comparison's sake, as this was our last full pre-pandemic fiscal year. It's what we consider our baseline against future revenue years as the pandemic carries forward. When comparing, just as a high level example of how we fared ending fiscal year 2021 compared to 2019, the city actually experienced an 8% increase overall in sales tax revenues. A similar chart is included for our transaction and use tax on page 259. The city is also seeing a slight uptick compared to 2020, about $16,000 in fiscal year 2022 compared to last year. This is also on track budget-wise. And once we receive the data through November 2021, we'll have a better indication of the revenue drivers overall for both sales tax and transaction use tax. That data will indicate if there are impacts of certain industry categories or changes in consumer habits that led to the revenues we'll have received. And once again, when comparing back to that baseline, 2021 current September revenues versus 2019, to the pre-pandemic baseline, the city experienced a 21% and over 21% increase in transactions and use tax revenues. Oops, excuse me. And then moving forward to our transient occupancy tax, the revenue comparisons are included on page 260 of your packet. The city is currently exceeding the same period prior year by about $70,000. The hotel and motel operator occupancy data is tracking very similarly to October of 2020. We're seeing ranges anywhere from 84% occupancy to 95% occupancy as an indication of if their empty rooms are filled at the end of the month, and then therefore coming to a part of the calculation for what they owe in transient occupancy tax revenues. And we realize that the operators are likely increasing their costs in order to cover increasing overhead costs, but we have not yet determined if that $70,000 that we're seeing is due to other factors such as short-term rental operators coming online, or other items that we could be pinpointing as far as drivers for the revenue increases. The city will also complete additional analysis as the operators will continue to remit through the end of October for September stays, and then we'll be able to report out on some of the additional drivers and the revenue increases that we're seeing for Q1 of 2021. And then moving to our water and wastewater revenues, as highlighted previously, we are on track through Q1 of 2021. However, we have seen consumption decreases across all customer classifications, so including commercial, residential, inside city limits and outside city limits compared to the same period in fiscal year 2020. But overall, we're still on track budget-wise. And the city is also in process of applying to the State Water Resources Control Board for the water arrearage program, supported by ARPA funding received by the state of California. The city is currently expecting $89,000 to be received for the water arrearage program in the next several months. And these funds will be applied directly to delinquent water customer accounts, which are negatively impacted by COVID-19 per the State Water Resources Control Board guidelines. We also anticipate being able to submit an application in February of 2022 for wastewater arrearages, and then those revenues to be received will be calculated at a later date. I also wanted to point out that per the website housing.ca.gov, applications are still being accepted and the portal is still open to residents who are either landlords or tenants to apply and see if they are eligible for COVID-19 rent and utility relief. Funding is available for both back rent and utilities. We encourage residents to please apply to see if you're eligible for payment relief. Once again, that website is housing.ca.gov. And then moving forward to current outlook. So overall, throughout the pandemic period and where we're at today, regionally, we have fared better than other hard-hit areas such as the Bay Area. The far north region, which is what Arcata is lumped into as far as analysis goes, when HCL's, our third-party sales tax consultants, is providing us with comparison data. We experienced a 10% increase in point of sales during fiscal year 1920 compared to our pre-pandemic levels, and 11% increase when comparing fiscal year 2021 to 1920. And just to kind of give you a perspective, when comparing the same periods for the Bay Area compared to their baseline, for 1819, they had an 8% decrease. And then for fiscal year 2020, 2021 to 1920, they only saw a mere 1% increase for their point of sales. And overall, the outlook continues to remain positive in fiscal year 2022. for local tax revenues, despite the supply chain issues, potential pricing issues, and labor concerns, such as staff shortages or increase in labor costs. And just today, Governor Newsom signed Executive Order number 19-21 to address supply chain congestion at California shipping ports. And some of those items as part of that executive order I'll highlight include identifying priority freight routes, potentially reducing weight limits on roads for transportation, identifying short-term state-owned sites as storage spaces for freight, and additional workforce training and educational programs. Would also like to note that Governor Newsom has also declared a drought emergency for the entire state of California today. Overall, initial indications show that city revenues and expenditures are tracking on target for fiscal year 21-22 through Q1 of 2021. And staff will continue to update the council on if and how these recent developments continue to impact our local economy. So I'm ending my presentation there, and I'm happy to answer any questions as they come up. Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any members of the councils that have questions for Andrea?
I don't have a question, but thank you, Andrea, for being so thorough, and also just thank you to the entire city staff and past council as well for just being so conservative in your estimates and just seeing how we are actually kind of coming out a little bit on top from COVID and, you know, working through that. So I just want to say, you know, thank you to everybody that made those decisions, and looks like we're doing well. So thank you.
I completely agree. Yeah, and just want to echo, thank you so much. We have very hardworking and incredible staff at the city, and your work is keeping us on track, and it's very, very appreciated. So thank you.
Okay, I think we might have someone from the public that would like to comment, so we'll go to public comment.
Go ahead, Mark.
That was a great presentation. I just want to give you some institutional information. I've worked with the company Humboldt Homes that we import from China a product that's combined with other things for the ADU market. And our suppliers in China report that the situation may clear up sooner than later. The state considers Arcata a wealthy city, and everyone is not doing as well as you. I'm in Arizona right now. I work with NACOG and other governments here. We're not doing very well. Arcata has a very slim margin there. In about 8 years ago, as part of the Humboldt Civil Liberties Defense Fund, we requested what were the costs of outside attorneys for Arcata, and they refused to give us that information. They had to sue. We got that information. It was appalling, tremendously appalling. And you're going to lose a lot of cases in the near future, I guarantee it. So if you have that slim margin, you got $1 million, I'm glad to hear that, because I might need $1 million from you at this point. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other members of the public?
No other public comment.
Okay, so that actually does lead me into a question. One of the things that jumped out at me, obviously, was that we have a surplus of $1.48 million, and I'm sure that jumped out to a lot of people. So, what is the method in which we go about deciding where that money should be used?
Yeah, that is residual from last fiscal year budget. So it is a carryover, and it is available to put towards priority projects. My conservative recommendation has always been to wait until we get to the full mid-year, make sure that halfway through this year we're still on track. We also do still have some ARPA funds that we will be allocating, and I think at that mid-year point that would be my recommendation. So, I mean, often those funds are just held in that reserve until you have a project that comes up, but I would suggest that you have a more formal conversation about that at mid-year.
Okay, thank you. That sounds reasonable. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so that takes us to an update on the status of safe parking programs from our city manager.
Yeah, just quickly. Actually, Vice Mayor Goldstein and I had the opportunity to touch base with Darlene Spohr from Arcata House Partnership today at the Homelessness Services Working Group meeting that kind of came in as a serial meeting, I guess, today, sort of, with people in and out. And they are still actively working on their proposal. She is hoping to have a draft that's available for her board next week to review, and then to be able to forward that to us. In the meantime, city staff are looking at potential properties and the cost to sort of build out just the basic security fencing, water, sewer, and electrical on those spaces, so that we should be able to bring that whole package to you. I do still think, I can't guarantee that we're really going to have that package by your next council meeting, but certainly by the one after that, I think we'll be able to have some details to discuss with the council.
Are there any questions or comments for Karen? Okay, so it's time for any other staff or council reports. Do we have any staff reports?
No other staff reports this evening. I just did want to thank the community for their patience as we are in sort of our traditional paving season. We like to pave the minute the rains start. We're really good at it. So you'll notice that along Union and along F Street, and if you live in the Sunnybrae neighborhood, our paving project will be coming to the Sunnybrae neighborhood within the next couple of weeks. But we are excited to have those contractors starting work right now and making those improvements before the real winter rains hit. So.
Thank you. Any council members with reports?
Sure. If anybody's interested, there is a multi-chamber chamber mixer tomorrow night on Zoom. You can find the link at the Arcata Chamber of Commerce website. I think that should be really interesting. Also, the city of Arcata has posted a lot of zero waste ideas for the upcoming Halloween. So please read them and do your best with that. We are still in a climate emergency, and let's really try to be as zero waste as possible. Thank you.
I'll do a report from Main Street, just that we've got some Halloween events planned on the 31st, which is a Sunday from 11 to 4 on the plaza. There will be an art market, games, music, some school fundraisers, photo opportunities, and some limited trick-or-treating. And we're also starting to go into the planning for the Season of Wonder and Lights that happens in December. So some good things happening in town. All right, if there is nothing else at this time, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. So thank you, everyone. Good evening.